Sorry about the audio quality. It's been so long since I made a video that most of my equipment is either lost or broken. So we're making do with my old digital SLR and a built-in microphone for now. Hopefully it's good enough we can get some video from it. This is a 2002 Daihatsu Hijet pickup. It's the 1300 EFI 16 valve big deck version. The big deck is an extra long, extra wide pickup bed that is not currently installed here because it's a mess. I bought this pickup unseen based on some photos and the history and the valid MOT, thinking that I was buying something that was roadworthy. As it transpires, got it delivered and it's a bit of a rust bucket. So the first thing I did was remove the bed, and it's a good job that I did because the chassis rails are quite rusty. There's a few holes that I need to patch up, and just generally it needs a big tidy up. Initially my plan was just to get it back on the road, drive it around a bit, have a bit of fun, and sell the van version which I bought a year and a half ago. I've just sold the van version, so now I can work on the pickup. However, I am not just going to put it back on the road. The plan is to modify it. The plan is to put a 4-link suspension rear end on it with coilovers, lower the front, and now the last day or two I've just decided I'm going to do an engine swap as well, and I'm going to put in a BMW K1200 RS motorbike engine. It's an inline 4 with about 130 horsepower. It is shaft drive, so the engine, the rotation is counterclockwise, which isn't going to work for this scenario with a live rear axle that requires a clockwise rotation. So there's a bit of thinking to do there, whether I just turn the axle over and risk ruining the diff, or use some sort of gear mechanism or transfer case in the middle to convert that rotation. Either way, that is a little bit ahead of where I'm at now. So today's video, I'm just cracking on with cleaning up the chassis and starting to think about the layout of the 4-links. Welcome back. So there's rust all over the chassis legs and cross members, paint flaking off, and some rust holes here and there that are all going to need repairing. I'm starting to tackle the surface rust and get rid of the old paint using a combination of wire wheels and woven, non-woven discs, both on the hand drill and on the angle grinder, and they're doing a really good job taking it back to bare metal. I won't need to take the whole thing back to bare metal, but wherever there's rust, I'm going to do my best to get it back to bare metal and treat the rust and fix the rust holes. It shouldn't take too long, but if it does get laborious, I may invest in a portable shot blaster, which will make a big mess of the garage, but make a nice shiny job of the chassis legs. So now I've got most of the top and outside of this chassis leg cleaned up. There's a lot of areas you can't reach with that disc, in the corners particularly, and areas where it's heavily rusted and you just can't quite get the edge of the disc in. So that will need to be treated either with a rust converter, or try and get the wire wheel in there, or even buy a little media blaster, shot blaster, and clean those up. Most of those areas though are around the 3 main brackets that are welded onto the chassis rail: the front spring mount, spring perch mount, the bump stop, and the rear spring perch mount. Now those, or spring hangers even, not perch mounts, I'm not going to need those because I'm removing the leaf springs entirely. So I am considering taking those off at the moment, but I don't want to remove any reference points yet before I worked out what I'm going to do with the 4-link. Now a few days ago I ordered a 4-link kit from Max Speeding Rods. It's cheap, the quality is here or there, it's metal, it's pretty heavy duty, and actually for the price, which is around £150, I don't think I'd be able to make anything similar. The cost of raw materials at the moment and bushings and things like that would just put me well over that price. So initially, and for this kind of size and weight and performance that I'm going for, probably this kit will do the job. But I'm just going to unbox it and we can have a look and see what's in it. So although this is a 4-link kit, it actually comes with 5 links. 4 links, 4 radius arms, plus a panhard rod. They're in this lovely snazzy orange, and you can see they're max speeding rods. You probably can't see that, but I'll put a link in the description if you like them. So there are 5 of those rods with a fixed bush one end and an adjustable bush at the other end. Ideally, if you were doing this for a much higher performance vehicle or something that is kind of higher end, you'd use a rose joint at one end for that little bit of extra compliance. The tendency with a bush, polyurethane bush at either end, is when the link is rotating, eventually the threaded end might loosen off, but also there's a little less compliance. Obviously with a rose joint you get a much freer lateral movement as well. These are the chassis leg mounts. I haven't quite understood yet how these are designed to fix on, but I suspect that's supposed to be welded either through or onto the chassis leg, and they do supply a plate as well, so I suspect that will need to be modified for my use. This is a axle side panhard link bracket, welds onto the axle there. 2 of the chassis mounts. Big bag of hardware, and I've noticed this hardware is actually too small, or slightly too small, for the bushes. There's more play in there than I would like, but I was chatting with one of the guys on the forum who has done a similar thing with a similar kit, and the cross tubes actually do crush down and tighten around those. However, I'm going to get some metric hardware which should fit that just slightly better. These little tabs are for the panhard rod mounting onto the chassis, and you can see they'll just go up squarely onto the chassis leg and be welded on. And then the last piece of the puzzle are the axle end linked brackets for the radius arms. 4 of those there, and obviously they weld onto the axle via this radius. The whole purpose of doing a kit like this, a 4-link or a triangulated 4-link, parallel 4-link, anything with a panhard rod or a Watts link, any sort of thing that is an upgrade from your leaf spring, the major improvements come from axle location and holding it where you want it and where it should be during cornering, braking, acceleration, etc. So the whole point of this is to improve that, and it's obviously critical then that I get the axle in the position I want it, so that then we get those improvements. Otherwise I may as well not bother and just put the leaf springs back on. And the primary thing for me at this stage is getting my axle centre line. Now I've already removed the springs, they were completely shot, as were the bushes and the hangers, so the axle location from that set point probably isn't that accurate. So actually what I'm going to do is take the centre line of the bump stops. The springs are in the bump stops are in the centre of the springs, and therefore the axle is mounting underneath those, and therefore I can safely assume within some margin of error that the centre line of these bump stops is going to be largely the centre line of the axle. Now I've obviously got some movement and some adjustability here, but if I get it close enough this time, I can adjust the suspension components later on. So before I remove any of these brackets, I want to work out what my centre point is between the spring eyes and the centre line of the bump stops. Taken a few hours, but I've finally got the 3 brackets off: the rear spring hanger, the front spring hanger, and the bump stop, almost entirely intact by drilling out the spot welds and going at them with a hammer. I've cleaned up most of the outside and the top of the chassis now on this side, and there's several holes, some big ones behind the main spring hanger and obviously some bigger ones up here, but nothing too major, which is good. So I'll need to get some sheet steel in, probably some 1mm, and cut out and replace these sections. So next thing, I'm going to move on to cleaning up these brackets. The original fuel tank mounts for the non-big deck version, which is shorter, are going to be in the way for me. So I'm going to remove those and I'll probably use an aftermarket fuel tank anyway.
To wrap up the day's work on my little toy truck, I decided to remove the gearbox to give myself some more space to get at cleaning up the chassis. Then I decided to remove the engine as well, and I could have saved myself some time had I left them both attached. There's so much access and it's such a simple vehicle that removing the engine is quick and painless. I dropped the engine onto a pallet by simply disconnecting everything and removing the 4 bolts that hold it in. Then I just picked up the truck and walked it over the engine. And I think that's where we'll leave this video. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to sharing more on this project in the coming weeks.